Today we are going to take a historical tour of the schools in the town of Dartmouth. Although the town was incorporated in 1664, there are no records of schools until the 18th century. The first mention of education in the town of Dartmouth was recorded at a town meeting dated July 7, 1702. The article read, "It was agreed to raise £40 for the payment of schoolmasters, £18 for a year's schooling." In 1798, there were 11 school districts. In 1816, it changed to 29 school districts. In 1842, records show that Miss Hester Pierce had 25 pupils ranging from 2 years old to 18 years old. In the year 1827, the first school committee was established. It consisted of 5 persons: William H. Mason, Jonathan King, Simon P. Winslow, Isaac Gifford, and Henry Crapel. The same year, the subjects taught were reading, writing, ciphering, as well as navigation and surveying. In 1866, it was voted to do away with school districts, and shortly after, the town was divided into a smaller number of districts with fewer but more adequate schoolhouses. Since that time, many schools have been built at town expense. It is believed that the first schoolhouse was built on the side of the road without any land for a playground at the corner of Gulf and Bakerville Road, which was called Seth Davis Corner. The measurement of the school was 15 feet 8 inches by 15 feet 4 inches, and it was heated by a wood stove.
Okay, my name's Bev King. I'm with my brother-in-law Howland King. We're at the King Farm on Bakerville Road, where the first school in Dartmouth was moved to after it was no longer used as a school. It was down at the corner of Gulf Road and Bakerville Road, and it was moved up here. Holly, do you know when it was moved up here by any chance?
That'd be in the 1800s,
Okay.
late 1800s, I imagine.
In the late 1800s, and this was the step for the school. And once it came up here, I guess Holly's great-uncles and his grandfather carved their initials.
My uncle and my 2 cousins, Fred Howland and Robert C. Howland, carved their initials in there.
And over behind us, there's a chimney, a small chimney with a slate top, and this is what's left of the chimney that was on the first school. When the school was brought up here, it was used as a corn crib. And I think was it over there, Holly?
No,
No, where was it?
right there with the greenhouse.
Oh, it was right here where the greenhouse is now. And the other school you were interested in was the school, do you know if it was called the Bakerville School?
Yeah, that's what they call it, the Bakerville School.
And did your father go there?
Yeah.
And who was your father?
Winston King and his brother, and Betty King, his sister, and Dorothy King went there.
And that was an elementary school?
Yeah, they had 8 grades.
And what did your father used to have to do down there as a chore? You said he had to go down in the mornings.
They had to go down and ring the bell in the morning. It had a bell tower on the top. And the thing is, you yanked the rope too hard, you could tip the bell upside down, then you had to climb up the tower and pick it back over.
And when they were done with that school, when they were finished using it, they moved it to the DPW yard.
Yeah, well, the highway department is.
And was that around 1940?
Yeah, they'd be around then.
Do you know what happened to it?
I don't know. If there's any old pictures over there now, there used to be an old building. What was it that had a chimney on it, but what I was thinking of was out more towards the front.
Okay, so we don't know what happened to it.
The present owner of the house that was a school way back in 1700s, Jerry Audette.
Yes.
Do you have any information about why this became School Street? Or?
I would imagine the school being here first. This street was named
After the school?
for
after
the school,
building?
yeah, after the school,
Right.
sure. And it was a dirt street for up till about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And the people we bought the house from, Pauline Newington Radford, she lived here for quite a few years. The house next door was a toll house at the bridge, and that was brought up from the bridge over here. And the cottage on the south side here was her dollhouse when she was a child. And they added to it, and it finally got to be quite a compound. And eventually they sold the toll house, and the remaining part is a schoolhouse here and the cottage, her dollhouse.
When did you purchase this house?
Oh, I'd say 45 years ago, something like that.
And you still have the original part of this house was the school. I notice in some of the rooms the ceilings are very, very low.
This room here hasn't been altered at all. Matter of fact, it has the same wallpaper on the walls as to when we bought it. The living room ceiling was dropped somewhat, but this room here hasn't been touched.
And does each room have a fireplace? Are they original fireplaces?
Oh yeah, that's a working fireplace, sure.
And that's probably how they heated the rooms way back when the kids were here?
Yeah, I would think so, because the heating system is, as you can tell, there's no cellar beneath this building here.
Right.
The piping is all above the floors, and it's a little different. When we first bought the place, the fireplace, the chimney, my brother and I, we repodged the chimney from the first floor to the roof, and we had to get behind, there was a bread baking oven on the side of the other wall here, and of course I touched one brick and it fell apart, so we took all that out of there, and we did the chimney, and in the process, between both two chimneys going into one, and in between we found a lot of little shoes, and the bellows in the pan down there, and then that bone fork. It's like a wrought iron fork with a bone handle on it. And there was a few other odds and ends that were in back there. Unfortunately, the shoes got thrown away. Those shoes were possibly laying around the fireplace because of, well, like you say, wet shoes in the wintertime and things like that. And why they were still there, I have no idea, but there they were, probably close to a dozen pair, little tiny things. And the soles were tacked together, not sewn, they were tacked. And it's a shame they got lost. I'm sure they would have had some historical value.
I've grown up in this area and lived in this neighborhood all my life. And I can remember years ago when I was a little girl going to the Paynerum School on Bush Street. My great aunts would take care of me sometimes, and I can remember them telling stories about coming up here to this house, and it used to be an old schoolhouse. And that was way back in the early 1950s that they would tell me this story. And from what I can remember, they all lived to be well into their 90s and 100 years old. And they'd come up here to go to school. And it used to be a one-room schoolhouse. And all the grades were combined together. And at that time, my great-grandmother was still alive, and she used to tell me that she used to tell her children that if they ever saw any Indians when they were walking or coming home from school, to run. Because back then, in the early 1900s or late 1800s, none of the houses were here in this neighborhood. There was just one house, and this used to be all woods. And the Indians used to live down at Ricketson's Point. And I was fascinated with the stories they used to tell me.
In some of the records that we found, the credit establishing schools belonged to a David Thatcher way back when the schools were in existence in private homes, which are private homes now, were under districts. The town didn't own them. Mm-hmm. And later on, the town did take over. But in looking in the records, we found that there were 22 districts in the early time when schools were, first schools were built in Dartmouth. The Hill School, or Bell School House, was built in 1805, located on 4 Middle Street. It represents the era before public schools when the early settlers of the region established an educational system through cooperative private endeavor. David Thatcher was instrumental in the founding of this school. The home is still standing and is a private residence. Private home on 434 Elm Street was one of the first 3 of Dartmouth revolving high schools. It was built in 1816. The original owners were Henry Tucker, Joshua Weeks, Reuben Crapo, and others, reflecting the fact that each district in Dartmouth at the time had to provide for its own school. The Crapo School, now the DYAA, was located on Slocum Road. Henry H. Crapo was born in Dartmouth in 1804. He was a surveyor and at the age of 17 became a school teacher. He was a member of the school board and taught school for 10 years in Dartmouth and surrounding towns. He taught in elementary and high school. Later in life, he moved to Michigan and became the governor of that state. When his wife passed away in 1876, she left money for the welfare of the boys and girls in Dartmouth schools. Dartmouth later honored her by calling the elementary school the Mary A. Crapo School. It closed around 1960. Paynerum School, also known as the Bush Street School, was built in 1903 and replaced 2 earlier schools in that area, one of which was the 434 Elm Street. This school, one of the 3 revolving high schools, and also served as an elementary school. It now is occupied by the superintendent of schools and his staff. A building on State Road, which had been in the area of District 3 Fire Station. It was a small 1-story schoolhouse until student overcrowding required the addition of a 2nd story. The building was later moved to the corner of State and Hathaway Roads and became a private residence, probably when the new fire station was built in 1909.
The building that houses the Dartmouth Grange, also known as Patrons Hall, was originally built as a schoolhouse in 1840 with land purchased from the Baptist Church in Russell's Mills, land that was originally scheduled to be used as a cemetery. When the church closed, cemetery land was no longer needed. They sold the lot to the town of Dartmouth, who built this school. Originally a 2-room schoolhouse. Once the 2nd school was built in Russell's Mills, this school closed down in about 1871. The school building was then transferred to private ownership and was used as a grain storage facility and a rental hall. And it's then that the Dartmouth Grange actually came into the building. In about 1890, they began renting the hall, which was at the time known as Pascomanset Hall. In 1892, the Grange purchased the property, and we have been in it ever since. In 1923, a series of additions were put onto the building which changed the original look of the building and the footprint, expanding the stage and meeting area, as well as an addition of a kitchen and bathroom. About 7 years ago, in 2003, we began construction on a shared use facility, the kitchen, which has been expanded considerably from the original footprint of the building. And we have tried to revitalize the Grange through the use of the hall and the kitchen.
I'm Hope Atkinson, and I'm here in this empty building, which was once the Russell's Mills Library, and before that it was a grammar school in the 1860s. It eventually became a grammar school and one of the 3 Dartmouth revolving high schools. The other 2 being Smith Mills and Padenham. In 1895, when a new Russell's Mills School was proposed, the building became the Russell's Mills Library. But I can remember things about it when it was a library. And my former neighbor across the street on Horseneck Road, his aunt had been the principal of this school when it was a school, Lizzie Wood. And I guess she was a tough cookie when it came to discipline. And subsequently, my first grade teacher at the Winslow School, the Betsy B. Winslow School, served here under Lizzie Wood as a practice teacher. And she told me that once Lizzie shut a misbehaving boy in the closet and forgot to take him out and shut up the school at the end of the day, and they had to come down and find him because he didn't arrive home. Of course, the kids were walking to and from school, so he didn't walk home with anybody and nobody missed him. So that was way early before my time, certainly, but it's kind of fun to know of that business. In the 50s or so, I became very involved in libraries. I was a high school librarian for 25 years in Wareham, and then in the course of that time, I became a library trustee in Dartmouth, and I served in that capacity for 25 years. And this was still a running library. It was going and open not long hours, but enough so it served this community, and it really was pretty much of a place for the people in town to meet each other on a Saturday afternoon or something like that. I had a small circulation, and I know lots of people depended on it. At that time, and just before I became a trustee, but in the earlier days, the 3 libraries in Dartmouth each had its own trustee. So a trustee was elected to the board of trustees as the Russell's Mills Library, and that was Mrs. Waldo when I was first involved here. And then there was a trustee of the Southworth Library. It was Essie Walters, and there was a trustee of the North Dartmouth Library. I can't think who that was, probably didn't know her really well. So that changed a lot when they all got grouped together, so you became a library trustee and you were a trustee of all the libraries. It was during the 50s that we put some plumbing in this library and opened it longer hours and made some renovations, because it was never, the upstairs here was never used as a library. It was storage stacks, so a lot of stacks up there, and stuff nobody knew what to do with was stacked up there, but that was never used. But this downstairs, this whole south side had rows of stacks perpendicular to the windows, and then the north side were magazines and the librarian's desk, and where the general business went on. But little by little, we opened it more and more until finally it was shut down completely.
This is the Russell's Mills School, and it was built in 1913 and had its first classes in it in 1914. And the last time it was used by students was in 1967. And in 1987, my wife Betsy and I bought it from the town of Dartmouth. And over a period of about 5 years, we renovated it to completely gut and rehabbed. But we worked very hard to preserve its exterior appearance from the street and a lot of the original moldings and the floors. And also I went to school here in, let's see, it was about 1949 and 50. So you want to go inside and walk around? Okay. Oh, by the way, this is my dog, Bosie. Okay. Come on, Bo. Come on. This is actually where, when I went to school here, it was both first and second grade in what was this room. And there were blackboards up here, and the teacher's desk was here. And I actually think I sat right here. I can see the little drill holes where the desk was bolted to the floor. These are all original floors. Very little of it had to be replaced. And we preserved these original windows. And this is original yellow pine molding and trim. We've got it set up here for the Neediest Families Fund fundraiser, which we do once a year. These are the original stairs. And you know what's interesting about these stairs? The risers are only 6 inches. They're designed for small people who take little steps. You know, the treads are rock maple, and the risers are yellow pine. These original handrails. And this is an original detail from the school. This is all, and this is yellow pine, and these are cypress. There's a lot of tidewater cypress was used in the school. This is all cypress. That was one of the original doors. It wasn't in this location, but we tried to use as many of the original doors in the building as we could. This is one of the original, one of the offices that we created out of classrooms. And actually what you're standing in right now would have been part of the upstairs hallway, but we converted it so it adds to the space of, this is Mark Medeiros, he's a photographer, it's his suite. So this is Mark's photography studio, and this is the one office that most corresponds to the original footprint of one of the classrooms. This probably would have been in my time, let's see, it would have been first and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth grades would have been up in this office.
School records dated 1892 to 1893 show that there were 19 schools in Dartmouth and 17 schoolhouses, one of which states that the State Road School had been closed because of the small number of scholars attending. 5 others were closed for the same reason. West Hicksville School scholars were sent to Hicksville School. The Central School, that was situated only a mile and a half from Smith Mills, transported the scholars to Smith Mills. Allen Street School only had 7 scholars who could be transferred to Blisconnor. Both Potomska and Allen Neck School were small and could easily be accommodated at Russell's Mills.
Yeah, original Blisconnor School was a little one-room wooden school right next door to where I lived. By the time I was born in 1922, that school had been outdated, and it was used as the water department headquarters. And a lot of the Dartmouth politics went on in that little wooden schoolhouse. Jacob Handy was the superintendent of the water department, and he was kind of Mr. Dartmouth in those years. John Marlin, who eventually became the secretary of the selectmen, worked for Jake Handy after he got out of school. And in those years, there used to be magazine salesmen that would come around and give the kids a little apron and a few Saturday Evening Posts or Colliers, and you'd peddle them around. So my first stop was at that original schoolhouse, which was now the water department, and Jake Handy and John Marlin were my customers. But when I started school in 1926, I went to the second Bliss Corner School, which was on the other side of my house. And my first grade teacher was a Miss Cashman, who was a thin little woman, but she was very strict. And I remember her well. The second grade teacher was a Miss Tabor, a more elderly woman. Those two grades, first and second grade, were on the floor of the Bliss Corner School. Upstairs were the third and fourth grades, 2 rooms of each grade. The third grade teacher was Miss Nichols, who was my teacher, and Miss Wolcott, who was the other third grade teacher. Then the fourth grade was taught by Hilda Goulart, who was a very strict teacher. She had a lot of trouble with the students. Most of the students, including myself, were first generation Americans. My parents and most of the parents of the other kids all were foreign born. And the parents were learning how to become Americans, and it was difficult for them to cooperate with the school, it seemed. So the teachers had a hard time. In fact, I remember Miss Goulart being thrown down the steps of the school because she had an argument with the parents of one of the kids. We came home for lunch because in those years, all the kids lived close to the neighborhood schools. And so we ran home for lunch and went back to school. The original Bliss Corner wooden schoolhouse that became the Department of Public Works headquarters was eventually moved from where it was at the Bliss Corner on Dartmouth Street up to the corner of Rogers Street, and was the original foundation of the complex that has now become the Dartmouth Senior Citizen Center, and it's still there. It's all incorporated in there. That building was originally built in 1930 and functioned as a school until 1894, when the newer Bliss Corner School was built. The Bliss Corner School originally was a 1-floor building with 2 rooms, but later it was enlarged and increased with a 2nd floor in 1914. So it was eventually an 8-room schoolhouse.
My name's Chief Arruda. We're at 1140 Hicksville Road, the fire station number 2, which was built in 1907. The fire station of District 3, located in Hicksville near Reed Road, was originally the Hicksville School, built in 1907 to serve students who had previously attended an older Hicksville school, which was condemned by the District Police in 1906, and students of West Hicksville, which in 1893 was recommended by the school board to consolidate with the old Hicksville school. The original cost of the building was approximately $500 and was probably designed by Erford W. Poole, who was at the time designing other similar school buildings of the same type and style. In 1939, the building was decreed obsolete and sold at auction for $400. It remained in private hands until 1968, when it was deeded back to the town for use as a fire station. At that time, the firehouse garages were added adjacent to the building. This is one of the 3 stations serving Fire District number 3.
My name is Gertrude Souza. My maiden name was Reed. I was born and brought up in the neighborhood of Hicksville. Went to school at the Hicksville Schoolhouse for 7 years, And my children also went to Hicksville Schoolhouse, and they also left there to go to Potter School when Potter School was built. And it was a wonderful school when we were growing up. We had two teachers, Mr. Westlow and Miss Lawson. That was our teachers for the time we were there. And when my daughter went to school, she still had Miss Lawson. The population was much different there. We all went to one school and we all knew one another. It was just great. We walked. We didn't have no transportation. We walked. Everybody walked to school. No matter how far you lived, you walked. No matter what the weather was, they didn't care. We had no buses at all out there. If it was a mile and a half, they had to walk. There was probably maybe in the whole, each room, there was probably maybe 30 kids, all the grades in the first grade, first to four, 1 to 4, probably 30 kids. And maybe in the 5 to 7, maybe there was 25, 30 the same. There wasn't that many that went. As she taught first grade, we were busy doing something else. And as she taught third grade, that was our class at the time or whatever, she'd be doing that. And every class had their things they had to do while she was teaching another class. We had Mr. Westlow, and if anybody was out of order, he just pulled his belt out and let you know he meant business. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. We had a few boys, in fact, my brother was one of them, that weren't too obedient. But by the time he got done teaching them, they were obedient. In fact, I was out of school 7 weeks with scarlet fever, because in those days they quarantined the house and nobody could go to school. And the learning was so good that I passed into the next grade with no questions asked. I mean, that for being one teacher for those children, she done a wonderful job. Both of them did. It was just wonderful in those days. I mean, I wish we could go back there, so we probably wouldn't have so much crime as we've got today.
Lincoln School, built in 1916, located on the corner of Reed Road and Route 6. In 1935, this building was used by E.R.H. Canning Factory. The land where this school was located is now an apartment house.
I'm Claire Delno Dreesen and attended all the Dartmouth schools, all 12 years. We started out in the 1st and 4th grades at the M.N.E. Collins School on Cross Road. That is now the VFW. And in the 1st and 2nd grades, we had Miss Shelley for our teacher. And then we went into the next room for the 3rd and 4th grades with Miss Ashley. Then I graduated with the class in June of '38.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Ryan Comiskey Roberts, and I'm back here in Dartmouth and love being here because I'm a native of the town. I began to teach in Dartmouth in the fall of 1938, and I stayed at the Gidley School until I was married in 1942. And in those days, if a lady got married, she had to no longer be an active teacher, but be what they called a permanent sub. You did exactly what you did before, but you got much less money. You were responsible for all the letters and everything you had to do, but as I said, it was less. But that was the law at that time. When I came back from being married, I went to the Cushman School and stayed there for quite a few years, and was there when the Cushman School burned. And temporarily they had to disperse us at the Smith Neck School. They reopened that for us. We had large classes of 6th graders, so it was really quite a job down at that relatively small building. I taught there for probably a year or so, and then we went back to the Cushman School.
There was a trolley that ran on Dartmouth Street in those years, ran from the center of the city of New Bedford to Padenham. and it went right past Bliss Corner. There was a stop at Bliss Corner, and went past the Cushman School up Dartmouth Street to Prospect Street, and I think the trolley ended up at Bridge and Elm Street. So once in a while, I would take the trolley from Cushman School home for lunch and run back. But it was fun walking to school because we became more friendly with our schoolmates, walking to school and telling stories about our lives.
Good morning, my name is Bob Vieira. I'm a graduate of Gidley School, the class of 1947. Gidley School was built 1922. The founder's name was Job S. Gidley, and they owned a big farm right down the road here, probably a mile and a half. When I was in school, all this land across the street here was just an open field, almost all the way up to Carrollton Heights. There was an ice house in there. Now it's completely taken over with businesses. Gidley School was very unique. Had a lot of fun in grammar school. Matter of fact, I spent so much time after school in 4th grade, I could have skipped 5th grade. Had lots and lots of fun. We didn't have much for organized sports because we didn't have any male teachers until, well, maybe 7th grade when Chester Smith got out of the service. And then we did organize a baseball team and a basketball team in 8th grade. Then he later on became athletic director at the Dartmouth High School. We did have a lot of fun. Many of my classmates are no longer with us, but I still see a lot of them here and there. Alumni meetings, class reunions. But Gidley School is where it all started, and I'll always remember Gidley School.
In June of '38, and then went to the Gidley School on Tucker Road for 4 years. We had Mrs. Randall, Miss Delaney, and then in the 7th and 8th grades we had Miss King and Mrs. Moffett for teachers. And we graduated from the Gidley School in 1942.
This is the Smith Neck School. Just north of us here is a private home that was the original Smith Neck School. This building in back of me, the brick, was built in 1924. Herb Bailey was the contractor. He did quite a bit of contracting in the area at the time. The original Smith Neck School, my father attended right after the turn of the century. He was born in 1906. After they changed and they moved that building over there on Mr. Betancourt's property. And this building opened, like I say, it was built in 1924, and closed. The enrollment started to drop in the late 30s, and they closed this school in 1942, according to Eleanor White's done quite a bit of research. My two brothers went to school here. When they closed this one, they sent the kids from the Smith Neck area to Russell's Mill School. The school reopened in late 1947. In October of 1947, there was a fire at the Cushman School, and it burned down, the current day Andrew B. Cushman School. So they needed classrooms, and they put 2 6th grade classrooms here. Mrs. Menard and Mrs. Comiskey taught. And at that time, they had tried to get one of the gentlemen who had been a janitor, now they call them custodians, to come down, but that was Abe Allen, and he was unable to do it, so I think it was Florence Smith was on the school committee and asked my mother if she wanted to be the custodian, janitor. I remember it very well. Her pay the first year was $360, $1 a day. There were 2 coal furnaces, a large one to heat the 2 classrooms and a smaller one to heat the hallway. I attended the, after the Cushman School was rebuilt, they kept it open for grades 1 through 4. Grades 1 and 2 in the south classroom and grades 3 and 4 in the north classroom. That's where I went to grades 3 and 4. I think there were about 32 or 33 pupils in my classroom for grades 3 and 4. The school remained open after that until 1964 when they closed it, and it was closed for quite a period of time. At one time, I think it was in the 1980s or late 80s, it became a alternative high school for a period of time. They did quite a bit of renovation. I was in the building, and they did quite a bit of renovation to the school to accommodate the alternative high school. Then it closed. I guess now that the park board, the Parks and Recreation use it maybe as a storage facility, but it certainly has a long history and rather interesting. A little bit dear to my heart.
Back in 1951, I was Teresa Mello, and I graduated from this school in 1951. It was a small school. As freshmen, we knew the seniors. As seniors, we knew the freshmen. There wasn't a great division between the classes because everyone knew everyone. And the teachers knew all the students, and we felt very much at home here. We felt very safe. It was a beautiful building to walk into. I felt proud to be at this school, and I still feel proud to be at this building. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful building. It was built as a high school in 1926. There are 3 floors and staircases at each end of the building. The cafeteria was in the cellar, and the gym was from the 2nd to the 3rd floor. There was a small library at the end of the study hall on the south side of the building on the 2nd floor. And the study hall was quite a thing to attend to. As a matter of fact, my husband was a senior when I was a freshman, and we were both in the study hall together. And he delighted in sitting behind me and pushing my chair out into the hall so that he could see me blush and see the teacher in charge of study hall glare at me. He did that quite a few times, but I still married him. This building remained a high school until the new school next door was built in 1956. In 1956, this building was used as a middle school for 7th and 8th grade students. It was named for Elmer M. Poole, a distinguished school committee man and brother of the architect, Erford M. Poole of Brown and Poole of New Bedford. Upon construction of the new middle school in 1966, which is located on Hawthorne Street, this school served as classrooms to handle the overflow from the new high school. In 1982, the use of the Poole School was discontinued. In 1987, the town took over this building and it became the town hall. The wall clock that hung in the principal's office now hangs in select person's meeting room. I remember this school with fondness, and I think some of the larger schools, the students probably miss out on a lot of warm feelings that we all had at this school. I still look back with fondness, all my memories and all my classmates at Dartmouth High.
Of course, as I said earlier, we all walked. There were no buses for elementary schools in those years, but when we went to high school, we went to the high school, which is now the town hall. And we all went on buses. There were a lot of buses that were run by townspeople. So when we went to high school, then we met kids from all over town. Kids from Gidley School and Cushman School, Russell's Mills School, all came to high school. So then we knew all the kids. By this time, I had moved from Bliss Corner and lived at Smith Mills. So I was pretty lucky because I had grown up with the kids at Bliss Corner, and they were going to school at high school with me, and now I became friendly with the kids from Smith Mills. So I was pretty lucky in that respect. I had 4 different principals in 4 years. Stuart Atkinson was the principal in the first year. He had been principal of the high school for quite a number of years. But in the 4 years that I went to school, they changed every year. And my second year principal was Charlie Oliver, who was agricultural teacher. In those years, we had an agricultural course in town. Then in the third year, we had a foreigner came, not a foreigner, but a man from out of town. Mr. Niles was the principal. And the fourth year, Wallace Parkhurst was my principal. He was the baseball coach, and he was a very nice man and was very, very instrumental in my life. He was one of the mentors in my life. We had a very interesting high school class. We had people in our class who really became active in the town, selectmen and school committee members like Leonard Rose and John Martha, Howard Young, myself, all became active in town. In those years, every class collected dues for when we became freshmen. And at the end of the senior year, we all went to senior picnics at Martha's Vineyard. I think they did it for many years. So I have some pictures in my collection of being on Martha's Vineyard with some of the classmates. We hired an old Model A Ford and drove around town, and we had a really hell of a time. When my class had a 50th reunion, we decided to establish a fund to give scholarships to succeeding graduates of Dartmouth High School. And I think we're the only class who gives a scholarship, and we're still giving it. We've given it now for 20 years. I'm really proud of that. One of the members of our class, probably the most famous, was Louis Millette, who started school in Maine, and his family moved to Dartmouth when he was a freshman in high school. He eventually became, he was a military man all his life and became a Medal of Honor winner and became a nationally known person. We had reunions of our class, have had reunions for many years. Last reunion was our 65th reunion, at which Colonel Millette was present.
I'm in 4th grade and in the fitness club here at DeMello. This elementary school was built in 1955 and is a 1-story brick building which has a 2-story gymnasium. This school and the Potter School were designed by Tallman, Lebrad, and Roundville of New Bedford. Both schools are alike in design. It is located at 654 Dartmouth Street and has 478 students attending at this time. Addition was in 1965. School named after Dr. Joseph DeMello.
My name is Jacob Woodley. I am 4th grade. I like baseball, and I play viola in the school band. This school was built as an elementary school in 1955. It is similar to design as the DeMello School. The structure of brick with large banks of metal frame windows and metal detailing. This building, along with the DeMello School, was part of the post-war school improvement program embarked upon the Dartmouth school system. At this time, there were 484 students attending. The school was named after George H. Potter. He was a judge and a school committee member. The additions were built in 1967, and this school replaced the old Hicksville School.
Hello, my name is Christian Medeiros from Quinn Elementary School, grade 2. I play baseball at DYAA, and I used to play soccer at DYSA. I also play guitar, and I'm about to tell you about the school. The Quinn Elementary School was built in 1966 to house the middle school student population. It is of modern international style and made of brick. In 2002, when the new high school on Bakerville Road was built, the school was changed from a middle school to an elementary school. The middle school moved to Slocum Road, replacing the high school building. The student enrollment at this time is 787 students. The school was named after James Quinn, a former school committeeman.
Hi, I'm Nicholas, and I'm in 6th grade, and I'm in the band here at Dartmouth Middle School. Located at 366 Slocum Road, was built as a high school in 1956, replacing a school at 400 Slocum Road, which eventually became the town hall. In 1988, the school was designed by Greer, Kent, Cruz, and Aldrin architects and was a modern international style and made of brick. When the newest high school was built on Bakeville Road in 2002, the school was changed into a middle school, replacing the school on Hawthorne Street. The Hawthorne Street School became an elementary school at the time. At this time, there are 1,044 students at this school.
Hey, I'm Scott Piazza. I go to school here. I'm a sophomore. I take guitar lab, which I started a band in there called LSP 90. This building is the most recent school built in town. It is located on Bakerville Road. It was opened as a high school in 2002, replacing the school on Slocum Road next to the town hall, which is now the middle school. Besides Dartmouth High School, there are 3 other schools available in Dartmouth. Bishop Stang High School, which is a private school located in Dartmouth on Slocum Road. Greater New Bedford Regional Vocational Technical High School, in which approximately 200 Dartmouth residents are attending, and Bristol County Agricultural High School. Presently, there are 1,166 students in Dartmouth High School. The Dartmouth colors are green and white. The school fight song is "Glory to Dartmouth." The school still uses Indians as their logo. The school still uses the stadium located next to the town hall for all outdoor sporting events. When the school was built on Bakerville Road, there was not enough land to build any playing fields.
Friends Academy, this mansion was built for Henry Herring and his wife as residents in 1927 on 68 acres of land. In addition, there were a 2-story farmhouse, a garage, and tool maintenance shed. In 1949, the mansion and properties were sold to Friends Academy of New Bedford, a Quaker private school founded in 1910. Several facilities have been added since then. A gymnasium, classrooms, library, art room, and others. Bishop Stang High School was built in 1959 and is located on the corner of State Road and Slocum Road. This building was named for the first bishop of Fall River Diocese of the Catholic Church, Bishop Stang. The school opened in 1959 by Cardinal Cushing of Boston. The school serves 30 or so parishes in New Bedford, Fairhaven, Westport, Dartmouth, Cushnet, Mattapoisett, and Wareham. UMass Dartmouth. This university was first named Southeastern Massachusetts University and was changed to UMass Dartmouth. The land it was built on was a former dairy farm in the western portion of Dartmouth, consisting of 770 acres of woodland. It is located on Old Westport Road. It was built in 1966. Award-winning design was by architect Paul Rudolph and echoes modern international and Japanese styles. Steel, reinforced concrete, and poured fluted concrete bricks comprise the basic building material. Southern New England School of Law, located on Fonts Corner Road. In 2010, the State Board of Education voted in favor of UMass Dartmouth's plan to take the donated assets of the private Southern New England School of Law and launch a public law program. There was a lot of research conducted for this program. Took several months at the Dartmouth Southworth Library, the Historical Commission's office, the Town Clerk's office. Derek Freites, the cameraman for DCTV, traveled with me all over Dartmouth to take pictures of existing buildings, and the Historical Commission for still photos.